Hey guys, I'm David Mitchell, founder and CEO of TRADEway. What if God himself gave you a blueprint for how to handle your money? Well, the Bible is a practical book. Let's dive in and see what it has to say about wealth, about risk, about leverage, and about investing, and uncover how trading in the stock market can be a powerful tool for moving towards your biggest goals. We're so happy you're here. This is The Word on Investing. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. You know what, we've got another great episode today for you, and we're going to celebrate gearing up for another great season of our podcast. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard me talk about two kinds of investing that are out there: short-term trading and the one most people know about, which is long-term trading, or actually long-term buy and hold type mentality there. Those are basically the two types of trading that people talk about or know about. And it's kind of interesting. There's actually a third type of investing that very few people know anything about or know the importance of it. And that's what my very special guest today is here to talk about. So today I have my son, Ben Mitchell, with me, and I'm very excited to have him on the show. And first, let me tell you what Ben does with TRADEway. He's the corporate team manager, and he's also the precious metals operations manager. Ben, it's so great to have you with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dad. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and always look forward to getting to talk about some of the stuff that I get to do at work just about every day, helping people out, whether it's just general support or more what we're going to be talking about in just a little bit, and that is their precious metals investing. But yeah, I always look forward to getting to talk about this stuff.
Well, Ben, you do so much with the company. I mean, you're basically the manager of the operations. But there's one really important thing that I want to talk about today, and that is that you are over the precious metals department. And so, unfortunately, that's sort of a hint at what this cool third type of investing is. But we have a special name for it. And really, I think our company is the one that created this third category, or the concept that it's actually a third category in and of itself. It doesn't really fit in with long-term investing. It's a separate category, a third important way of investing. So tell us a little bit about that. But first, tell us, how'd you get an interest in it?
Yeah, Dad. So like you mentioned, I've been the team manager for about a year and a half now. So that's a relatively new position for me. But for the last 7 years, since I started working with the family business right out of high school, you handed me this project that at first I thought, I'll do some research, some development for you, and see where I could take it. But what's cool about it, Dad, is it didn't take long, maybe just a few weeks after you initially handed me this project, that I did fall in love with it and realize that this would be my thing. This would be, my division, if you will, and in the thing that I got to incorporate in the family business. And so that's how it got started. It's kind of a funny story how it got started, especially given where we're at now, about 7 years after the fact. And I can't imagine a time not focusing on it.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, Ben, you've become an expert at precious metals, and the timing could not have been better, because look around us.
Right.
We just had probably the most bizarre election in my lifetime. I'm 66 years old, so that's a long time, and we literally have half the country, totally unaligned with the other half of the country. And so you're never going to have, let me put it this way, you're always going to have half the country not happy, it seems like, no matter who wins the election. So it just doesn't matter who wins, half the country's not going to be happy, because we're so divided seemingly. And then you look at the markets, they've been printing money now for goodness, all through the Obama years, even before that. And then certainly through the Trump years, we've been printing money in order just to keep the economy moving like crazy. And your expertise, I mean, you've studied world history going back to the book of Genesis, the creation of the world. You've gone that far back to see what governments do to the value of money. So how's this going to turn out, and why is precious metals so important? And then eventually I want you to get this idea of what is this third thing called, this third type of investing?
Goodness, where to get started? I mean, there's so many directions you could take this topic. And like you said, I had to do quite a bit of research in different areas, from just general history to obviously the history of money, to bring it down more specifically. And then the history of the precious metals, the bullion markets that have been around since the 70s, tie it all in together, because they all are very closely related, and in my opinion, play a big part in knowing exactly how to approach this the right way. So let me answer kind of your last question first, and that is, what is this third idea that, is something a little bit different related to the short-term trading, the long-term, more buy and hold investing that people are more familiar with? It's a concept that you actually taught me, and it's not only a concept, it's not only a type of investing, it's also a strategy in and of itself, something that our family's been doing for 3 generations now, going back to, when Papa started incorporating himself, and that is what we call hyper long-term investing. And what's really interesting about it, Dad, what makes it unique compared to these other fields like short-term trading, buy and hold investing, is that it accomplishes multiple things at once. So the first thing right off the bat is it is a way for you to, buy the specific type of investment and hold it for the, as we put it, hyper long term. And the idea is that you hold it basically forever, and you only use it for a couple of reasons. The first reason would be if you absolutely need to use the, gold or silver, whatever precious metal you invest in for this purpose. That could be you need to liquidate to use the cash for whatever reason, or as we teach in more detail in some of our education that I'll talk about in a little bit, what happens if we have something, I don't know, totally unexpected, like a global pandemic or something like that nobody saw coming. Or even, you can look just at U.S. history and start with the Great Depression, move forward to the Great Inflation of the 1970s. Now we've had a global pandemic going for almost a year. These very unique, time frames just within our own history when, alternative currencies and alternative means of, providing that inheritance for the next generation becomes really important to start, focusing on.
Now, Ben,
and so, yeah, go ahead.
All right. Here's the whole idea. What we mean by hyper long-term is basically you just never sell it.
Pretty much.
You're thinking about dying and then your kids get it. But what if the entire Western economy imploded and was gone? Now you say, well, that's ridiculous. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm familiar with the time during the Great Recession, the first few days of that, when Warren Buffett said that if Bush and his men had not stepped in within 2 days, it would have all been over. And by that, he means the entire Western economy would have been gone. Now, you think about that. So nobody's investments in stocks would have been worth anything. Bonds wouldn't be. So, if that happened, then you would use the gold and silver. But other than that, you're just not buying and selling is the point.
You're exactly
keeping
right.
It to protect.
And I didn't even mention the Great Recession.
So tell me this, how much has gold appreciated in the last 20 years?
Okay, yeah. So to put this in perspective, for those of you who think, why not just have savings? Why not just have, nest egg of cash in case some emergency happens or something like that? Well, what's cool about it, Dad, like I said, this strategy, this concept of hyper long-term investing, it accomplishes multiple things. And one of the things that actually makes it a very active form of investing, because a lot of people think of gold and silver as passive, it's actually very active, and here's why. Let's say that, 20 years ago, you took a small portion of your savings. I don't necessarily advocate putting 100% of your savings into gold or silver, but just a portion. What gold and silver can do is it can actually preserve the purchasing power of those savings. And what does that mean? Well, everybody, for the most part, is familiar with this term inflation. It's talked about in a lot of different, many different contexts. And what it really means is that our money supply gets bigger. And when that happens, the value of the dollars go down. Well, what that means for you as an individual is that your savings become less valuable. You've taught me this concept before, Dad. Inflation, in many ways, is like a hidden tax on the general person because you don't necessarily know it's happening, at least on the scale that it really is. And before you know it, just a few years goes by and the hard-earned money that you now have in your savings is worth, in some cases, considerably less than it was when you put it in there. So to answer your question, last 20 years, the value of the dollar in the last 20 years, your savings, if you just had a standard savings account, has lost 35% of its purchasing power. So just to put it in dollar terms, let's say you had $1,000 in savings 20 years ago, it would take over $1,300 now, like $1,350 now, to buy the same stuff that your $1,000 you initially put in savings would have bought 20 years ago. So you lost 35% of your savings value in the last 20 years. But on the other side of it, Dad, gold has increased. This is almost crazy. Gold has increased by nearly 600%.
Wow.
So here's a couple of things that just happened. One, the gold would have adjusted for inflation. It's almost like if your savings automatically adjusted for inflation. Wouldn't that be pretty cool?
Yeah.
So that
would be cool.
35% would still be there, plus the other 500 something percent. And that is just general price appreciation because, as you know, Dad, gold in the last 20 years has increased in demand quite a bit. And
All
so
right.
it's just worth a lot more.
So, let's review our math. It's been a while since a lot of us were in high school or junior high doing math. So you talk about 600%. That would be like if I forgot, did you say, let's pretend you had 10,000 you put in there or whatever it was?
1,000 or 10,000.
1,000, let's just say 1,000. Well, first of all, rather than that having gone down to $735 because of inflation, that wouldn't have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But also the $1,000 would now be worth $6,000 to $8,000.
That's right.
So did you say how many percent? 600%?
Almost 596.
All right. So your $1,000 would now be $6,000. Now, most of you would have put more than 1,000. Most of you might have put 10,000 in there, for your hyper long-term, say 20 years ago, if you'd known this information. So now your $10,000 would be worth $60,000 just sitting there in gold. And so I see your point. It's more active than people think it is, isn't it?
It's very active, Dad. And just let me bring it even closer to home, just throw out a few more numbers. That was the last 20 years. In the last 10 years, again, your savings have lost 17% of their purchasing power, while gold has increased 40% in the last 10 years. And then this is crazy. Just the last 5 years, your purchasing power has lost 11%, while gold has increased 67%. And the reason why that number is a little bit higher than it was 10 years ago is because in 2015, a lot of interesting things happened. And actually, gold hit a bottom, if you will, and has increased significantly since then. And so, again, just in the last 5 years, your dollars are worth 11% less than they were, or your general savings, where gold has increased over 65%.
Wow. That's amazing. So the thing we don't really advocate is getting in and out of gold and silver trading. In other words, short-term trading with it. We call it hyper long-term because you just want to buy it and keep it, basically hope that you never have to use it.
Sure.
And if you did have to use it, though, you would have it. And if you didn't, your kids are going to get it and they might have to use it, So that's really the beauty in it, is it gives you some protection of a percentage of your assets that actually nothing else can protect in the same way. The stock market could be gone. There were 2 days when Warren Buffett thought it was going to be gone. All right. Now, bonds are no better.
Right.
All right. So that's what most people think about, stocks and bonds. Well, this is, a third category that's really, really important.
And what is the precedent for gold taking this role? Well, like you said, you can go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. I mean, it's literally all of human history that gold has served this purpose. And it's only been since the 70s that the world has been, the entire world has been on this experiment that we could refer to as fiat money system. And that means money that's not tied to anything, literally. There's a lot of people out there that kind of kick that under the rug a little bit and think nothing of it. It literally means that the money's tied to nothing other than the trust of the people. But we know that can be a pretty volatile thing in and of itself.
Yeah, let's talk about that a minute. So now your cash dollars used to be tied to gold.
Right.
Now they're tied to nothing other than the trust in the government. How many of you trust the government as much right now, if you're my age, as you did when Eisenhower was president, for example, or even when Kennedy was president, for example? How many of you trust your government that much now? So your dollar's only worth how much you trust your government. And that adds a lot more value to the concept of having some percentage of your lifelong savings in gold and silver or other precious metals. Now, Ben, I think we've taught you guys quite a bit of interesting information. I mean, Ben literally could go on for 5 shows, 10 shows and talk about this stuff, but how could people learn more about it?
So that's a great question, Dad. And before I answer it, let me get just even more specific for a second. What do we mean when we're talking about gold, silver, precious metals? Because there's a lot of different ways you can, gain exposure to the metals market. We are literally talking about physical gold and silver, Dad, like coins and bars, which is actually really cool because, it's not only is it a practical investment that accomplishes all the things we've been talking about, it's fun. Coins are just an inherently cool thing that you can pass down to your kids. There's cool artwork attached to it. Sometimes it's collectible, sometimes it's not. And so you kind of learn how to approach the market in that regard. And that's what we teach people, Dad. And so to answer your question, part of that project you gave me over 7 years ago was to develop a comprehensive precious metals course, which we've done, which we've had going for a number of years. And I have personally assisted hundreds of precious metals investors across the country with their investments and in teaching them how to approach the precious metals market the right way. Because listen, Dad, the precious metals industry is kind of considered the Wild West of the financial sector. And one of the reasons why is because it's not very regulated. It is a little bit, but not very much at all. And so there are a lot of dealers out there, a lot of online dealers, a lot of pawn shops, a lot of mom and pop coin, shops that can really take advantage of the consumer in regard to getting the highest premium they can out of it.
Yeah. Well, now think about this. Most of you guys, if you're older, you get things in the mail all the time.
Sure.
And even just regular magazines that you get, you'll open it up and they'll be selling gold. And or on the like Fox or any of these other TV channels, you'll see well-respected actors usually come on there
Right.
and say, here's why you have to have gold. And you think, well, that's how I get involved. And the problem is sometimes they're pushing in a lot of what we call intrinsic value so that they can goose up the price, and they're charging way more than the actual gold or silver is worth in the market. And so one of the great things, if you talk to Ben and his group here at TRADEway, they're going to steer you in a way where you're not paying those premiums. You're getting a good price.
That's exactly right, Dad. What's cool about it, we don't sell coins. We give you an education. And so we're not tied to any specific coin or bar or investment out there, which means that you can trust us to point you in the right direction.
Well, the deal is we don't make money on the sale of the gold or the silver.
Right.
And so we do have some great connections, by the way,
Absolutely.
well-trusted, amazing
Absolutely.
companies, and the main ones right here in Texas. And we know them. We've been there. We've been on their property. We've been to their business, and they're a multi-generational family business like we are, by the way, too. I'm not going to give the name of it. You may not want to do that, but we have some really, really solid connections like that, but we don't make any money from that. So we're not in
Right.
it to sell you, with some kind of premium where we make a bunch of money. We make some money on the educational side of it, and it's well-deserved because you need that education. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Dad, we've done our due diligence. We have connections that we can help point you guys in the right direction. But ultimately, like I said, it comes back to the education, how to approach this industry in a way where you can be cost effective. The way I like to put it is we teach you how to get more metal for your dollar, because again, a lot of these companies out there, and I'm not going to give any names, but some of the ones you see on TV, some of the ones you get those, mailers for or from, marketing whatever coin on, with whatever special attached to it, there are usually hidden fees attached. There are usually hidden commissions attached. The premium right off the bat is usually considerably higher than you can get from other trusted sources. And so, again, we want to show you guys how to know what you're looking for. There are hundreds and hundreds of options out there in between gold and silver. I mean, hundreds of options for silver, hundreds of options for gold. How do you know even where to get started? How do you know which coin or bar is best for you and your family that will meet your personal objectives? That's what we help you with. And so we have, again, this comprehensive education. It's called Protect Your Future. It's actually an online course. You can, go at your own pace. You can revisit the material as much as you need. It covers everything from why do you even need to be investing in precious metals in the first place? Because a lot of us have this intuitive feeling of, I feel like I need some gold or silver. I feel like I need to invest in something physical, something tangible that I can have and hold, but we don't necessarily know why. Like where does that come from? We actually set the foundation in the course for why you need to be doing it in the first place. We teach you how to do it properly, where to acquire the metals from. Again, we have trusted sources that we've been working with for over a decade. So the best way for us to help you guys right now is for you to reach out to us. You can email me directly at preciousmetals@tradeway.com. I'll tell you exactly which resources you should be considering right off the bat, as well as how to take advantage of our online course so that you not only set that foundation I've been talking about, but know the ins and outs of the industry, know how to get the best price, how to get the most metal for your dollar. So email me, preciousmetals@tradeway.com. That's all one word. And we'll be able to point you in the right direction.
All right. preciousmetals@tradeway.com. That's cool. Well, Ben, I have been so excited going through your material through the years, and I've learned so much from you about it. It's so fascinating to go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Do you guys realize that gold is mentioned in the Garden of Eden, and God said, I put gold there and the gold is good. So some of us who are into the word, we study this concept of first mention, where the first time a word is mentioned in the Bible, if you go there, you can get the whole ground level groundwork for what God is going to teach us about it. So that shows us gold's really, really important. God told Adam and Eve, they didn't have any stores yet. They didn't have places to go shopping. So why did God let Adam and Eve know, hey, you got the gold there? Well, I personally think it's so Adam would have something to give Eve. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, but you go from there and you go all the way through history of civilization, showing how different civilizations the governments have destroyed the value of their currency on purpose to create this hidden tax you talked about earlier. And it's stuff you have no idea, guys. You have no ideas what's going on, even right now with our government as they're printing trillions of dollars. All right. And they're saying that there's no inflation right now. Well, there is inflation right now, but they don't like to talk about that it's significant, but it's getting more and more significant. And listen, it's something that we've got to face and we've got to talk about. And that's even if the economies do well and the governments don't blow up, the things don't just collapse. Even if they just go on like they are, inflation is really an insidious enemy of the value that's created by our families. Now, a lot of what we talk about here at TRADEway is the concept of the family business and how you have the potential to create generational wealth when you work together as a family. And we don't want inflation or governments to come in and take away everything that creates. So, Ben, thank you for putting this precious metals course together and this whole division of our company. And I do want to reemphasize, it's not just the education. We will help you get into gold, silver coins, or bars, or whatever you're interested in. And we won't take one penny from that, but we will help you get it. And you won't need to worry about somebody taking advantage of you, and that is huge. So, Ben, any closing thoughts on this before we go?
Sure, Dad. Well, we've hit on a lot of things in this podcast. Of course, there's much more to be talked about, like I mentioned. And of course, I'm more than happy to continue this discussion with any of you guys out there listening. Just reach out to me and I'll answer your questions and help you get started. But, the course really hits on a lot of different things. You mentioned going all the way back to the Garden of Eden. It's funny, Dad, because, in addition to the biblical significance of gold, and like you mentioned, you also earlier mentioned this concept of intrinsic value, and that is actually a big concept within this industry. Some people in the industry consider it a misnomer. They don't believe gold and silver have intrinsic value. They think it's just subjective. And then on the other side of it, they take it a little too far and they use it more as a sales tactic. Our course actually breaks it down, and we use the very scripture that's used in that is from Genesis, those early Genesis chapters, to show you what intrinsic value actually means and how it applies to you today with your gold and silver investing. It's super fascinating. So we talk about everything from that to, again, certain investing strategies that our family's been using for over 3 generations, including how to incorporate metals investing with your short-term trading. Most of our podcast episodes here talk a lot about our short-term trading concepts. We actually show you how to incorporate both of them together because they seem like totally different mindsets, totally different trading styles. And in some sense they are, but the part that a lot of people don't understand is that they're actually very fluid concepts within each other, that they go together perfectly. We actually show you how you can take some of your potential gains with short-term trading and use that to protect the purchasing power with this other mindset known as hyper long-term investing with precious metals. We incorporate it all in this course. And so it covers a lot. Certainly want to share it all with you guys. So just reach out to me and I'll help you get started with that.
Hey, I had one other thought, Ben.
Sure.
And what you just said kind of made me think about this, is that you do have good or bad entry points. If a person's trying to get into gold or silver for the first time, there could be a season of maybe a few weeks where it would be a better entry point than another. And don't you have a newsletter that goes with your educational system where you actually put that information out and you let people know on a weekly, maybe even daily basis when good entry points are?
You're exactly right. Part of the educational system, we send out weekly, we call them gold market alerts. And we actually tell you guys when the buy points are good and when they're less than ideal. And what's interesting, Dad, is that buy points with gold and silver, they are different than the short-term trading like you just referenced. However, we still like to use the same concept, same idea when it comes to the buy points because, again, you can utilize those same concepts for getting the most metal for your dollar. If you get a good buy point, even though you're planning on holding it for possibly the rest of your life to pass down to the next generation, if you get the buy point right, which we show you how to do, you have the potential to get more metal for your money, which is just a really cool thing to be able to do.
Yeah, it really is. Well, let me just say this. This is so fascinating, so important to get involved with the precious metals. I want to remind you that if you're sitting there and you're saying, well, what about the short-term trading and what about the longer-term investing part of it? Well, we have a concept out there called Trader Max, and you can go out to TRADEway.com and find Trader Max. And what is so good about that program, for one thing, there's very little risk because you can cancel the program at any time. But what's so cool about it, it gets you involved with not only stock market information, like why do we even have the stock market, all the way from ground zero. What's it all about? Why is it there? Let's say I know nothing about it. Where do I start? All the way from there to actual strategies in the stock market, and even get you into what we call step 2, which is all about options. And that's the way we leverage our money and get the most out of every dollar for our family, as we have the potential to create wealth that way. And it gets you a lot of information about stock trading and options trading in this program. And it's more than that, too. You get some coaching involved. You get a concept called the Insider Program is all included with it, which it's emails daily on what the market's doing and what the market tone is. Is it a good time to jump in the market or to be doing down plays or up plays? Because you may not even know this. When you learn about options, you have the potential to make money when the market's going down. So you can get involved with all of that sort of information through Trader Max. And another really cool thing is that we have Market Corners, which is like a live webinar where you're on there with our great instructors and many, many other students, and you're actually looking at potential stocks at that given time. And it's really, really cool. And you have access to online home study courses and a great online community you can be involved with. So all of that's called Trader Max. Check it out at TRADEway.com. Well, Ben, it's been great to have you with us on the show today. And you know what? There's just no way we can cover it all in one show. So we'd love to have you come back sometime. Would you do that?
That's right, Dad. We have a lot more to talk about. So I'd love to be back and talk about more of this stuff with you guys because I certainly enjoy it. I hope you guys have been enjoying it as well. And I look forward to next time.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. And if you enjoyed it, would you rate and review it so that people of like mind with similar interests can find it? And we really enjoyed being with you today. We look forward to being with you next time.